Yes.
Good morning. Thank you very much for a very passionate presentation this morning. My question's in two parts about the National Commissioning Boards. First of all, we're talking about delivering local services through the NHS, and yet we've got a National Commissioning Board. It seems as if it's top-down delivery, prescribing and directing what happens at a local level. That's the one point. The National Commissioning Board allocates an enormous amount of resources, got huge responsibility. I'm a pharmacist, and the National Commissioning Board will be purchasing services of community pharmacy. Will you be having outposts of the NCB? No, it's not the Coal Board. I'm old enough to remember the National Coal Board. Will you have sort of subgroups of the National Commissioning Board who will take accountability, perhaps to regional level, for delivery of commissioning of services other than GP consortia?
Okay. Again, I mean, part of the dilemma in all of this is the language that we use, and just to talk about the NHS Commissioning Board. Did I really call it the National Commissioning Board? Oh dear, I beat myself because like you, I mean, I worked in South Yorkshire for most of my career, and the National NCB has particular connotations for me. The donkey jackets with NCB on the back, we remember. And we don't want to go the way of that, I have to say, just in case anyone thinks. But what I'm talking about here is getting consistency across the country in terms of the quality of outcomes that our patients can expect. I'm not talking about issuing instructions from the centre, you must, because we know that simply won't work. What I'm talking about is giving people the tools, but then also publishing the data that shows, and giving the incentives that show whether people are improving outcomes for their patients. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't characterise that as top down. I would characterise that as getting consistency across the system as a whole. And the second thing you say, will we have local people? I think we will have a group of people who work out in the system. We haven't quite got to the point of deciding how we'll organise them. But there are just two things I'd say about them. One of them is it's very easy to get into a discussion about regions and all the rest of it. This is one organisation. The NHS Commissioning Board is a corporate one organisation. It does not have tiers like statutory bodies in the past. And it's quite a difficult thing for us in the NHS to get to, because we've always had various tiers in the system. It won't be like that. It'll be one organisation. But of course, there will be people with local knowledge. We will need people with local knowledge. And the interesting thing about pharmacy, for example, is the pharmacy needs assessment process is going to be done by local governments. It's going to be done by the Health and Wellbeing Board, which is a big change for me. It's a big change. So local governments are being engaged in that. And what we know from the legislation is that the Commissioning Board has the potential to have somebody on each of the Health and Wellbeing Boards to work with the system as a whole. So you can see there where we would have people locally organised with local knowledge and local connections so that we can make sense of the issues. But also we know that it's perfectly possible in terms of GPs, in terms of pharmacy, in terms of optometry and dentistry, it is possible to get the benefits of scale. We do lots of things locally. Actually, we could do only once or twice across the country as a whole. So you can see how we can design a system to do that. We haven't finally done that yet, I have to say. We're kind of working through that. In a sense, we want to work with pharmacists, with dentists and with GPs to see what is the best organisation. We're starting that work next week to make sure that whatever we create, it has buy-in from people locally.
Just, I think, a couple more questions. Is there another one? Yes, the lady right at the back under the word theatre. If you get something to her, and we've got the gentleman over here now. Your question, sir.
Obviously, today's event is all about innovation, and I've listened to you about how the NHS wants to use innovation to reduce costs and such like that. How we've developed a special supply chain management system to reduce cost to hospitals. It's been rolled out by Stanford University Hospital, New York University Cancer Hospital, and so on. And we are keen to try and do free pilot trials to the NHS in the UK. How would you reckon is the best way for us to do that, to offer to try and save 25% of inventory costs by doing free trials with the NHS?
Free pilots. You've still got to go through a procurement process of some kind, have you, for that?
Yeah, but we need, in a sense, you've made your pitch, haven't you? You know, well done. We'll talk to you about it.
Okay, but in principle, if people offer something free as a pilot, what is the process that you would go through in order to say A or nay to that?
I think it would depend on the scale of it, the nature and the way, and our contractual disposition at the moment. We may already have contracts with people that exclude that, so it would have to be on a one-by-one basis.
Right, but you don't rule it out.
Yeah.
No. Right, yes, and the lady back there.
Hi, Sir Nicholson. You've touched on it, but I just want to ask, in light of the new commissioning system, where do you see the role of the private healthcare provider?
Do you mean the private healthcare provider of commissioning support?
No, of healthcare, i.e. whether it be hospital care. How do you see we fit into the new commissioning system?
Okay. Well, there are two ways in which you can essentially fit into all of this. One way is through a tendering process. So an individual commissioner or a group of commissioners would decide on a particular pathway of care, would decide on a particular level of service that they wanted to look outside the existing provision system for, and you would go through a tendering process through the normal rules to make that happen. So that's one way in which the private sector can engage. The other way is through the developing processes around any willing provider. And just any willing provider doesn't actually mean anybody who wants to do it and anyone who's willing to do it. What it means is in order to provide service, you have to be registered by CQC. You need to be able to convince commissioners that the quality of standard that you have is at least as good, if not better, than that in the NHS. And if you can do that in any willing provider system, you can start to provide services. And if patients choose you, then they can use you. We've started that in terms of elective care. Many of you will know elective care essentially in the UK, in England, is on an any willing provider basis. You can be referred to any NHS hospital and any of about 150 private hospitals who provide services at NHS tariff at NHS quality in the country now. That's a big thing. What we're looking at later this year is rolling out the next wave of any willing provider. And what we're trying to do is to look at those areas where patient groups and patients' voices have said they want choice. So we'll be looking at that over the next few months. So later on this year, we'll be announcing a whole set of areas where we want to increase the opportunity of any willing provider process where patients can make the choice in the country. That'll be the second way in which you can work with us.
Well, David, sometimes I get the impression that you're actually going to hew the NHS yourself out of a log of wood or weld it together in some way. But thank you for your passion, enthusiasm, and for, I think, taking us through quite a lot of interesting areas that people here would be really interested in. So David Nicholson, ladies and gentlemen.